They hurt you, and now you want revenge, but you're thinking about it wrong. You're thinking like prey that finally bites back. You need to think like the predator who never stopped hunting. Physical revenge is obvious, loud, traceable. It makes you feel powerful for a moment, then puts you in a cage. Mental revenge is invisible, silent, permanent. It destroys them from the inside while you never touch them, while they can't prove you did anything, while everyone thinks they just collapsed under their own weight. This is how you destroy enemies without becoming the villain, without leaving fingerprints, without giving them ammunition to use against you. This is Machiavellian psychological warfare. And when you're done, they won't be your enemy anymore. They'll be a broken thing that used to be a person. Subscribe right now because this gets dark. And keep watching. You're about to learn how to dismantle a human being using nothing but their own mind against them. Machiavelli wrote that if an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Most people read that as kill your enemies. That's amateur. That's visible. That's traceable. The real interpretation is destroy them so completely they can't retaliate. And the most complete destruction is psychological. A broken body heals. A broken mind stays broken. A reputation destroyed never fully recovers. Self-image shattered leaves permanent cracks. You're not here to hurt them physically. You're here to architect their mental collapse, to become the silent architect of their psychological destruction. And when it's done, they'll blame themselves, not you. Lesson 1. Make them doubt their own reality. This is psychological destabilization through manufactured inconsistency. The goal is to make them question their perception, their memory, their judgment. Not because you're cruel, because confused enemies are neutralized enemies. A person who doesn't trust their own mind can't trust their decisions about you, can't mount effective opposition, can't rally others against you. They're too busy trying to figure out what's real. Here's how this operates. You create subtle inconsistencies in how you interact with them. Around others, you're professional, cordial, sometimes even warm. Documentation shows you as reasonable. Witnesses see you being appropriate. But in private interactions, you're cold, dismissive, subtly hostile. No witnesses, no documentation, just their experience against your public presentation. They tell someone you're hostile. That person says they've only seen you be professional. Now there's a gap between their experience and others' perception. Doubt enters. Are they overreacting? Are they imagining things? Are they the problem? You escalate this systematically. In meetings, you agree with their points publicly. Validation. But later, in private, you undermine what they said. Create situations where their proposals fail not because you opposed them publicly, but because you quietly withdrew support they thought they had. They experience sabotage, but publicly you supported them. The disconnect between what they experience and what they can prove creates cognitive dissonance. Their brain tries to reconcile the contradiction. Can't. The dissonance is uncomfortable. Some people externalize, blame you, but there's no proof. Others internalize, blame themselves. Question their judgment. That's what you're aiming for. You also manipulate their social feedback. When they complain about you to others, you've already positioned yourself as the reasonable one. Your public persona is so consistent, so professional, so appropriate, that their complaints sound like paranoia. Other people start questioning them. Are you sure that happened? Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you're being too sensitive. Each time someone doubts their account, their confidence in their own perception erodes. They start doubting themselves. And self-doubt is psychological quicksand. The more they struggle to prove you're the problem, the crazier they look. The crazier they look, the less people believe them. The less people believe them, the more they doubt themselves. This is Machiavellian because it requires no direct attack, no provable hostility, no traceable malice. You're just being professional publicly while maintaining private distance. If confronted, you appear confused. I've always been professional with them. I'm not sure why they're upset. Your confusion reinforces their doubt. Maybe they are the problem. Maybe they're overreacting. Maybe their perception is wrong. Once an enemy doubts their own perception, they're no longer a threat. They're a confused person trying to figure out if they're losing their mind. Drop a comment right now. Destabilize. Let me know you understand how doubt becomes the weapon. Lesson 2. Isolate them socially through reputational surgery. This is strategic destruction of their social foundation, not through obvious attacks, through invisible positioning that makes others distance themselves naturally. The goal is to make them alone, because isolated enemies are weak enemies. No allies means no support. No support means no power. No power means no threat. Here's how you isolate them without appearing to attack. You become the source of subtle concern. In conversations with mutual connections, you don't attack your enemy directly. You express concern. I'm a little worried about them lately. They seem stressed. Have you noticed they've been acting different? You're not making accusations. You're planting seeds. Concern sounds caring, but it primes others to view your enemy through a lens of something being wrong with them. You do this consistently across their social network. Different concerns to different people. To one person, you mentioned they seem overwhelmed. To another, they seem to be struggling with something personal. To another, they've been making unusual decisions. Each concern is vague, plausible. Sounds like you're caring about their well-being, but the cumulative effect is everyone starts watching your enemy for signs of the problems you suggested. Confirmation bias kicks in. Once people are looking for something wrong, they find it. Your enemy makes a normal mistake. People think it confirms they're overwhelmed. Your enemy is having a bad day. People think it confirms they're struggling. You planted the narrative. Confirmation bias makes it real in observers' minds. Meanwhile, you position yourself as the stable one, the reliable one, the person who has it together while your enemy is falling apart. You don't need to attack them. You've positioned them as fragile and yourself as solid. People naturally gravitate towards stability. They distance from instability. Your enemy becomes isolated not because you told people to avoid them, but because you made them appear unstable, and people naturally distance from that. Another isolation tactic. Become the bridge they need. Position yourself as connected to people and resources your enemy needs. Then, control access. They need an introduction. You say you'll make it, then forget. They need information. You say you'll pass it along, then don't. They need support for a project. You say you'll help, then you're too busy. Each failure is plausible. You didn't actively sabotage, you just didn't follow through. But the cumulative effect is they can't access the network and resources they need. They're cut off, and cut off people become desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Mistakes reinforce the narrative that something's wrong with them. The beauty of this is your hands stay clean. You didn't tell anyone not to work with them. You didn't badmouth them. You expressed concern, which sounds caring. You failed to follow through, which is human forgetfulness. But the result is they're socially isolated, professionally sidelined, and everyone thinks it's because something's wrong with them, not because you engineered it. Machiavelli understood that destroying an enemy's allies is more effective than destroying the enemy directly. Isolated enemies collapse under their own weight. You don't need to push. Isolation creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. Mistakes create collapse. You just positioned the pieces. Gravity did the rest. Lesson 3. Make them sabotage themselves. This is the darkest tactic because you're not destroying them. You're creating conditions where they destroy themselves. The goal is to trigger their worst impulses, amplify their flaws, and position them to make decisions that damage them. Not because you forced them, because you knew they would, and you created the perfect conditions for it. Here's how this operates. You study your enemy. What are their triggers? What makes them angry? What makes them defensive? What makes them impulsive? Everyone has psychological buttons. You're identifying theirs. Once you know their triggers, you press them strategically, subtly, in ways that look accidental, in ways where their reaction looks disproportionate. If they have anger issues, you create situations that frustrate them in front of important people, not through obvious provocation, through subtle things that shouldn't matter, but you know will trigger them. They overreact. They look unstable. You look calm. The contrast makes their reaction seem more extreme. If they're defensive about their competence, you ask innocent questions that imply doubt, not accusations, just questions. They get defensive. Defensive behavior makes people think there's something to be defensive about. You didn't attack their competence. You triggered them to attack themselves by being defensive. You also create double binds. Situations where both choices damage them. If they respond, they look reactive. If they don't respond, they look weak. Either way, they lose. And you created the situation where loss was inevitable. They chose which loss. But you architected the trap where loss was the only option. Another method. Give them rope. When your enemy is making a mistake, don't stop them. Encourage them subtly, not obviously. Just don't intervene. Let them commit to the mistake fully. Let them defend it publicly. Let them invest in it. Then let reality correct it. The correction is more devastating because they committed fully, and you never opposed them. You just didn't save them. Letting someone destroy themselves is cleaner than destroying them. They can't blame you. You weren't in the way. You just watched. The most sophisticated version of this is making them think victory is close, then yanking it away. You let them believe they're winning. Let them get confident. Let them make decisions based on that confidence. Then you reveal the ground they thought was solid never was. They collapse not because you pushed them, because they climbed on ground you knew was unstable, and you let them. Machiavelli wrote that wise princes make circumstances, not wait for them. You're making circumstances. But the circumstances you're making are ones where your enemy's own flaws destroy them. You're not the weapon, they are. You just aimed them at themselves. Comment self-destruct if you understand how to make enemies destroy themselves. Lesson 4. Control the narrative permanently. This is the end game. Once they're doubting themselves, socially isolated, making mistakes that confirm others' doubts about them, you cement the narrative that explains all of it. Not your narrative. The narrative everyone tells themselves about why your enemy fell apart. And the narrative is never that you destroyed them. The narrative is they destroyed themselves. Here's how you control narrative. You don't make accusations. You express observations. I've noticed they seem different lately. I hope they're okay. Observations are harder to challenge than accusations. You're not saying they're bad, you're saying you're concerned. And concern positions you as caring, not attacking. The observations prime others to notice the same things. Once multiple people notice, it becomes consensus. Consensus becomes reality. You also never celebrate their decline. When your enemy makes mistakes, when they lose opportunities, when they spiral, you express sympathy. That's unfortunate. I hope things turn around for them. This does two things. One, it positions you as gracious, not vindictive. No one suspects you engineered their collapse if you're sympathetic about it. Two, your sympathy reinforces that their decline is real, observable, something even you noticed and feel bad about. It confirms the narrative. The narrative you're cementing is they couldn't handle the pressure, or they have personal issues affecting their performance, or they never had what it takes and it finally showed. Any narrative except you systematically destroyed them. Because if the narrative is they fell apart on their own, no one looks at you. No one investigates. No one questions. It's just a sad situation where someone couldn't cut it. You maintain this narrative long term, even after they're gone, neutralized, no longer a threat. You speak of them with mild sympathy. It's too bad what happened with them. I think they were overwhelmed. This cements the historical narrative. No revenge, no destruction, just an unfortunate person who couldn't handle their situation. And you're the person who tried to help, expressed concern, hoped they'd succeed. Your hands are completely clean. The narrative is completely controlled. Machiavelli taught that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. The same with narratives. The narrative doesn't make reality, but widely accepted narrative becomes social reality. Control narrative. Control how reality is remembered. And if reality remembers your enemy as someone who fell apart on their own, you've achieved perfect revenge. Total destruction with zero attribution. This is why mental destruction is superior to physical. Physical revenge is obvious, traceable, prosecutable. Mental revenge is invisible. By the time anyone realizes what happened, if they ever do, it's done. Your enemy is broken, their reputation is ruined, their confidence is shattered, their support network is gone, and everyone, including them, thinks it's their own fault. You didn't attack them, you didn't harm them, you didn't even oppose them directly, you just created conditions, pressed psychological buttons, withdrew support, let them make mistakes, expressed concern, and watched as they collapsed under weight you carefully, invisibly placed on them. Here's who you become when you master this. You become the invisible force that shapes outcomes without being seen shaping them. The silent destroyer whose enemies fall apart while no one knows why. The Machiavellian operator who understands that the best revenge is the revenge no one knows was revenge, where the target thinks they destroyed themselves, where observers think it was tragic but inevitable, where you walk away clean while your enemy is rubble. You don't need to hurt them physically. Physical wounds heal. You destroyed them mentally. Psychological wounds stay open. Self-doubt becomes chronic. Ruined reputation becomes permanent. Social isolation becomes normal. They don't recover from this. They rebuild smaller, weaker, permanently damaged. And they never realize you did it. They think they did it to themselves. Machiavelli wrote that the ends justify the means when the ends are necessary. Your enemy threatened you, hurt you, made themselves necessary to destroy. The means are psychological warfare. The ends are their complete neutralization. The justification is they started it. You finished it, invisibly, permanently, completely. Subscribe right now. Turn on notifications. Smash like. Because this channel teaches dark Machiavellian psychology for people who understand that visible power is weak and invisible power is absolute. Comment mental warfare if you just learned how to destroy enemies without touching them. Comment invisible revenge if you understand why psychological destruction is superior to physical. Comment architect if you're becoming the silent designer of others' collapse. Share this with someone who needs to understand that revenge doesn't require violence. It requires strategy, psychology, patience, and the willingness to let your enemy think they destroyed themselves while you architected every condition that made their self-destruction inevitable. You're not the villain in this story. You're the Machiavellian operator who understands that enemies are neutralized through their own minds, not through your hands. That reputation destruction is permanent. That psychological damage doesn't heal. That self-doubt compounds. That isolation creates vulnerability. That confusion creates paralysis. You don't fight enemies anymore. You dismantle them, psychologically, socially, professionally, systematically, invisibly. And when it's done, they're no longer a threat. They're a cautionary tale about someone who fell apart under pressure. And you're the person who expressed concern, hoped they'd succeed, and moved on when they didn't. That's Machiavellian mental warfare. Silent, invisible, absolute, permanent. Welcome to psychological dominance, where enemies destroy themselves, where you never throw a punch but they end up broken, where revenge is a carefully constructed collapse that everyone, including the target, thinks was self-inflicted. You're not fighting anymore, you're architecting, and architects don't destroy buildings with their hands. They remove structural supports and let gravity do the work. Hit subscribe, hit like, comment, share. You're the architect now, the invisible hand, the silent destroyer, the Machiavellian force that shapes reality while remaining unseen. Your enemies don't see you coming. By the time they realize something's wrong, it's too late. They're already falling. And they think they're falling alone. They don't know you removed every support, pressed every button, isolated every ally, controlled every narrative. That's mastery. That's Machiavellian. That's how you fuck enemies mentally without ever touching them. Welcome to invisible power, the only revenge worth having. Thanks for watching.